You probably have that friend, colleague, or family member who you know is in an abusive relationship. You tried your hardest to get them out of it. You talk them into leaving the relationship. In fact, in some cases, you're going to physically remove them from the abusers. Yet they went back. Now you're frustrated. You can't understand why they will not leave. Today, I'm going to be telling you why some people choose not to leave their abusers, even when they have a chance to. Welcome to my channel. My focus on this channel is to prevent you from getting into bad or abusive relationships. But if you're already in an abusive relationship, I have fantastic content for you as well. So please consider subscribing so that you can become a part of this growing community. So I'm going to give my first disclaimer, which is that I am not a psychologist, psychiatrist, mental health expert. I'm just someone who has experienced abuse and very familiar with a lot of the things I'm going to be talking about today. In fact, I'm going to be sharing from my experience. Now, the second thing is that in this video, I use the word victims, not in a derogatory way or to make anybody feel bad. And I do not use the word victims to imply that people who have suffered abuse are weak in any way, because I personally have suffered abuse and I'm not weak by any standard. So today I'm going to be looking at what goes on in the mind of these victims using something called the cycle of abuse, which is something I personally experienced. As a matter of fact, I realized that there was some sort of cycle, in whatever it is I was going through, even before I realized there was a term called a cycle of abuse, which was coined by a woman that I'm going to put her name up on the screen. Not everybody's abuse goes through this particular cycle. And of course, there are many variations, to the types of abuse that people, experience. But I know that in my case, mine was largely, following after this pattern. And I know that there are many people who go through this pattern of abuse. Now, according to the person that coined this, term, cycle of abuse, the first phase is the tension phase. And tension phase is when, the abuser, probably for, work pressure, going through one issue or the other, financial stress, etc., begins to get irritable, begins to get easily agitated. I remember that I personally will always notice when this person begins to snap at, the slightest things. That's in my own case. Person will just snap at the slightest things. You will just say something that you will have said on any other day and it will have been fine. But the person will suddenly become angry just because of that statement, and what usually happens in the victim's mind is they begin to walk on eggshells. They keep trying to avoid issues. So what I will do at that time is try my hardest not to provoke this person. I'll try not to say things that I feel might offend them. In my mind, I'm just trying to prevent trouble. I'm just trying to avoid trouble as much as possible. Unfortunately, nothing I do prevents the abuse. Nothing I, say, nothing I do prevents the abuse. And then, it basically leads into the second phase of the cycle, which is the incident, which is the actual abuse. I remember that in my case, initially when this abuse started to happen, I used to shrug it off and just say, why is this person acting like this? And then I would say things like, oh, we'll discuss this, when this person is not as angry as they are at the moment. I did not even think that it was abuse because there were a whole lot of things that was happening. There was this, so then, the person would just suddenly flare up. It's like person goes from 0 to 100 really fast, in anger. And, you could just be having a regular conversation and then boom, the person is upset. The person starts name calling and all of that, yelling, threatening, a lot of stuff. Initially, I used to feel like, what exactly is going on? I simply could not put a name to it, to what exactly I was experiencing. And so at first, did I feel bad? No, not really. I didn't really used to feel sad. I just used to think, well, like, why is this person acting like this? But as time went on in the relationship, the abuse became worse. So things were actually getting worse, not better. And it began to get to me. It got to a point where I would feel really, really sad because I could not understand why someone who was caring, kind, would suddenly act this way. In my mind, I was extremely sad. I mean, there were times when I would cry. I went through a lot of pain when the abuse happened. So another thing I used to experience during the abuse was a lot of confusion, a lot of pain, there was shame, there was feeling like I was inadequate and all of that, which is, what the abuse was. The abuse I experienced was largely emotional and verbal. Okay. And so for a lot of, the victims, that's how they feel. They feel pain, shame, and then there's this feeling like, why is this happening to me? Like, you're just confused. You cannot tie the person who was kind and caring to this nasty person who seems not to care about your feelings. Now, if you're getting value from this video so far, please hit the like button so that more and more people can see it. Thank you so much. But then after the abuse, the third phase, which is the reconciliation. And what usually happens is that the abuser begins to apologize, say they're sorry, promise that they won't do that anymore, and begin to love bomb, which is they become kind again, affectionate. In my case, this person who will be extremely disrespectful during the abuse phase will become very respectful, will actually become very kind, will be on their very best behavior. In fact, it was like you're dealing with a totally different person from, the person who actually did the abuse. And what used to happen is that when the reconciliation phase came for me, I would basically forget the abuse, or I will begin to rationalize it. Oh, maybe he was just in a bad mood. Maybe he was having a bad day. Maybe something really happened. Maybe the abuse was not as bad as I thought, that it was. It's like someone gives you something bitter and then gives you something extremely sweet. The sweet taste seems to cover up, the bitter part. And that's what used to happen to me. I literally used to forget. Like in my mind, I was just like, forget that. That just happened on that day. This person is really a kind person. This person is really, respectful and caring. That's whatever happened that day was just, was out of character. Yes, I think that's the right word. And this is what happens a lot in the minds of a lot of the victims. They begin to give excuses for this person. They begin to go as far as even defending the person. And they even say things like, oh, he's a good man, she's a good woman, she's hardworking. When they say these things, it's not a lie. This person really can be caring, can be hardworking, can have all of these good sides. But they still have that underlying behavior, which is the abuse. And all the other, kind acts and all of that are just to cover up. After the reconciliation phase comes the calm. That's the last phase in the cycle, which is when there is peace in the relationship. I mean, I know for me, when that happens, I just feel like, oh, things are back to normal. And then I begin to feel like, oh, this person has really changed. Oh, there's this feeling of joy that you have your relationship back, everything is working, the way it once did, and all of that. And then you totally forget the abuse, or you just put it right behind you. That's what I used to do. I'll just put it right behind me, like, I probably took that too personal, maybe what the person said was not that bad. In fact, there are times when I'll blame myself and I'll say things like, oh, you knew that this person was going through a stressful time. Maybe you shouldn't have brought that up at that time and all of that. And that's what a lot of victims do. They begin to take on the blame, begin to deflect, give the person excuses for their bad behavior. And so for me, for a long time, I simply could not see this person as a bad person. In my mind, this person was a good person that had a small character flaw. Okay, and the character flaw was the abuse. And I felt that I could help them. Yeah, I genuinely, I felt like I could help them. I just needed to be a little more patient, more understanding, and try to be more empathetic, to understand where they are coming from and, why they're acting the way they are. There were many times I was hopeful that things have changed. That was the last time the abuse was going to happen and all of that. I did not know that what I was experiencing is called a trauma bond. And how did that come about? Simply because when you keep getting tossed up and down, it's like your emotions are going really low and really high, really low and really high by this person. It's like a topsy-turvy, and all of that. And yeah, I simply had no idea. I simply could not see this person for who they really were. That's just the truth. So let me tell a short story, popular story of Samson and Delilah. That will probably give you a better picture of how dangerous a trauma bond can be. Samson was with Delilah, and we know that Delilah was clearly trying to destroy him. I mean, you read the story. If you never read the story, I'm going to leave it up on the screen. And you can see clearly that this woman does not wish this man well. And we also know that she's extremely manipulative, because she would say, tell me the secret of, your strength. And he would say, oh, you just need to tie my hair up with this. And she would tie his hair up. And then, of course, the Philistines will appear and he will break loose. And then she will go to him and say, you don't love me. Strange that the person that is trying to harm him is telling him he doesn't love her. And for whatever reason, Samson could just not see Delilah for who she was. He simply could not break free from whatever hold she had on him. I mean, when you read the story, you are wondering, what is this man thinking? Someone, does something like this to you for the first time. She does it the second time. Like by the second time, you're supposed to get that, okay, this woman, there's really something going on here, right? But he simply could not see it. And that's the way, in fact, another thing that you know about Delilah is that she was very abusive. And the reason you know that is because the Bible says that she literally nagged him to the death. That's what the Bible says, to the death, like to death. She tortured his life. Okay. But Samson did not leave Delilah until she finally destroyed him. So why am I saying this? Just so that you can understand what is going on in the mind of the victim. A lot of times they genuinely cannot see how destructive this person is. They genuinely cannot see how bad this person is. And sometimes they just choose to see only the good sides that this person has and ignore. That's what I was doing. I was ignoring all the other, negative things that were happening. Even though this person was causing me a lot of harm, a lot of damage, I kept ignoring it. I kept focusing on, oh, this person has good sides. And that's how you hear victims say, oh, this person is good. This person is not bad. You don't understand. They're not lying. Abusers are not always all bad all the time. There are times when they're actually good. Good in quotes. They're extremely good. But as I began to find out more about abuse and all of that, I began to realize that during the reconciliation phase, this person will do everything possible to get back in my good books. And so in the reconciliation phase, something that if I had said it at another time will have triggered this person, because they are trying to get back in my good books, they'll say, no, it's fine. And I'm wondering, and somehow I'm surprised. I'm like, oh, okay, he didn't get angry because of that. Oh, maybe he has really changed. But that's not the case. If somebody is going through a trauma bond, what you can do for them is not say, oh, it's their life. I've tried my best. Don't do that. Because a lot of people in trauma bonds don't know that they have a trauma bond with this person. They genuinely don't have any idea what's going on. I mean, I know for me, I didn't realize it. What you need to do is stay with this person. Give them as much information as you can, because I realized for me that as I began to read more, I began to understand what exactly was going on. As I got more articles, read up, here and there, I began to realize what exactly was happening and how this person was basically manipulating me, if you like. Okay. Please stay with people who are going through abuse. Please do not turn your back on them. Please don't expect them to just snap out of it, because not everybody can snap out of it. In fact, many people can't snap out of it. stay with them, continue to pray for them as much as you can, maintain contact with them, give them materials that they can read so that they can finally see for themselves what is really going on. Because the truth is, until they see what is happening for themselves, they will not leave. So please don't turn your back on them. See you in the next one. Please don't forget to like, to subscribe, and please share. Share with someone. Goodbye.